The Coonhound Collective podcast is brought to you by Conkeys Outdoors, because we support the people who support our way of life, and CZ Welding and Fabrication, custom dog boxes built by hunters for hunters. Check these guys out today. This is your host, Jason Snowgrove, and I will be your guide as we journey down the road to pleasure hunt or hitting the long trail to those great comp hunts. This is the Coonhound Collective podcast. All right, welcome to the Coonhound Collective podcast today. Today's going to be a little bit different than the normal type of podcast we do. We're still interviewing somebody. It's just going to be just a little bit different. We're going to have Brad Lutrell from Go Wild with us today, talking about the app. If you haven't went over and checked out Go Wild, pause this, download Go Wild on your phone, sign up for an account. The more you use it, the more points you earn. You can redeem those for rewards. I've already done that. I really like it. It works really well. I was able to actually buy me a pair of rubber boots off there. Got a really good deal on them. So if you haven't done that, pause this real quick. Go over, download Go Wild in the App Store, Android or iPhone, and check it out. That way, while Brad's talking, you can kind of see what he's talking about there. So Brad's going to be joining us by phone. So stand by. We'll get him on the line.
Hello.
Hey, Brad. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Oh, pretty good, man. Sun shining here in Missouri, so that's a good thing. It's been raining for a week straight.
I saw you're in Springfield. Is that right?
Yeah, just south of there. I'm actually in Branson today. I have a lawn and landscape business, and we do a lot of grass cutting for the city of Branson. So I'm actually doing this podcast from my truck today. I had planned to be off today, but I didn't know it was going to monsoon last week.
Yeah, well, I hear you. We've got one of our developers lives in Springfield.
Oh, cool. Yeah. We live out in the country. We're about 30, 40 minutes kind of south and west of Springfield, and about the same north and west of Branson.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, cool. Well, I'm looking forward to talking to you today.
Yeah. Well, we'll jump right into it. So why don't you go ahead and tell us who you are and a little bit about yourself and kind of where you're from and all.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm not from Alabama, but I am from what a lot of people consider down south. So I'm from Appalachia in Middlesboro, Kentucky, born in Eastern Kentucky, grew up there and lived there for 18 years. And then pretty much have spent most of my life in Kentucky. I lived in Tennessee for about 9 months and ended up coming right back to Kentucky. So I guess I'm Kentucky born and raised and probably die here. So, I ended up, I did a lot of hunting and fishing growing up, and spent a whole lot of time doing stuff like four-wheeling and camping, and just grew up loving the outdoors. And in a lot of ways, in such a way that I feel like a lot of kids won't do anymore because of the internet. I'm kind of that last generation that grew up without a strong internet presence. And I still vividly remember some of my first times using the internet as a kid. I think it was in fourth grade before we really even saw it in action in class, versus my kids now who have, smart boards and YouTube and all this stuff. So a lot of that really pushed us outside, and grew up with college, went to the University of Kentucky, got a journalism degree. And, my whole career has been a series of pivots. And, so I did journalism for a while, I did advertising for a while, done PR. And, ultimately, I've talked to a lot of people who after college end up gravitating back towards where they're from or towards their roots, just like I'm sure you miss Alabama from time to time, right? Like you always just kind of have that longing for home. And I think part of me was enjoyed getting back into hunting and fishing a little bit after college. And I did that in my professional career while I was, building my professional career up. And through all this, kind of came up with this concept of Go Wild as a place where you could post and connect with other people. And, one thing that was really important to me was to learn. I was My dad didn't deer hunt, and I was trying to get good at deer hunting, and I didn't really have a mentor for that. So I was trying to find connections online and to find places to forums and whatnot. And I was like, man, this sucks. Trying to learn whitetail hunting. This is pre, the hunting public, and Meat Eater wasn't on Netflix, and this is just a different time. And that was 2014 that I was really struggling with that experience. And then in 2016, got the idea for the platform, and me and three other guys through my basement and over some pizzas and with my dog hanging out with us in the basement, built this platform and got it live. And it's been wild to see what it's grown up to. I've just kind of talked already for like 5 minutes of your podcast here, so I'll stop and see if there's a question on any of that. And then if not, I could tell a little bit about what the platform is.
Yeah, no, you go ahead. On my intro before I called, I asked everybody to pause, go to their app store, download the Go Wild app. That way, as you kind of go through this thing, they can kind of see what you're talking about. I've been using it for a little bit, racking up some points. Actually wore out a pair of muck boots, and I ordered me a pair of redhead boots with my reward points that I've earned already through Go Wild. So yeah, just go ahead.
Awesome. So, the platform's changed a lot, and I always tell people, because I do a lot of podcasts, and I always tell people, if you haven't been on in the last couple of years, because we started this, we got it live in a beta product, which means it was still kind of been tested and roughed out in 2017. And so a lot of people tried it out in those early days, and I didn't even go full time with this until 2018. So it's changed a ton, and really over the last, I would say, year. We've really started to find who we are and what people like with this platform, and it's blowing up right now. If you're on the app, you've seen all the new people coming in, and today we have really three functionalities of Go Wild. So there is a really strong social component. That's what we were founded as. That's what we do well. You can share your deer. You can share, if you're a trapper, you can share that content. If you're an angler, you can share all that, and you're not going to get bullied by it because you're in a community that understands what you do. They understand the value of hunting. They understand hunting as conservation. They understand fishing. Even on Facebook right now, saltwater fishermen are getting their content taken down because it's got blood in it. And I don't know about you, Jason, but every chef I've ever talked to says you should kill the fish before you eat it. So it's a little strange to me that that's the rule, is that the fish can't have blood on it. But I mean, that's the kind of madness people deal with on other platforms. So first and foremost, we're a social place where you can share content and not worry about being harassed. The next thing we have on the platform is shopping as a functionality, and that sounds weird at first, but what we did this because people wanted it, right? Over time, we noticed that everybody was talking about gear and what gear people were using, and so naturally, we are a business. We have to make money. So instead of trying to build, this advertising giant like how Facebook makes their money, we've really leaned into selling gear and helping people find gear that is reliable. A cool part of the social platform is as you use those new boots you bought, you can tag those on future hunts and share how they're working for you. And over time, as the whole community does that, we start to figure out what products perform the best and what don't. So, our goal is to help people find gear that works and, avoid gear that doesn't. And then the third component to Go Wild today is the reward system. So as you share, as you shop, as you invite friends and all this stuff, you get points. And it's not exactly like airline miles, but you can kind of think of it that way as they build up. You don't cash them in like you do with airline miles, but you get points for every little bit of action you do in the app. As you get those profile points, you're unlocking rewards along the way. And these are always changing, so it's not a guarantee that any certain reward that your buddy got will be what you get. But, right now, today, we have, if you create your account, you get $10. If you, I don't remember exact point volumes, but it's fairly easy to unlock a sticker. As you keep going, you'll unlock discounts. There's free shirts, there's gift cards, there's a free knife once you get up really high in the points. Like, there's all kinds of really cool stuff. And so the idea here being, and people ask me, like, how in the world are you guys making money doing this? And we look at this as in some ways as a marketing expense up front. It's us trying to show people like, hey, there's other places you can shop. There's other places you can share. And they get into it thinking they're just going to get a free shirt, and they end up really liking the platform. Like literally 98% of people who get to unlock 2 rewards stay because they've been there long enough that they're like, man, this is really cool. I'm talking to people in my area who do exactly what I do. I'm getting feedback from people who really understand trapping or fly fishing or whatever you're passionate about, right? So the reward system has been by far the most popular thing we've ever launched. It's kind of been it's probably the only product that has ever like completely overwhelmed us. We didn't expect it to. I mean, we knew it was gonna be popular because we're giving away some free stuff, but like, holy cow! I think Dan, who's sitting in the office next to me at times, is here until like 9 o'clock some nights trying to catch up on this stuff. And we're shipping thousands upon thousands of shirts and stickers and all this stuff. But again, it's working out because people are learning about us. They're telling their friends, and they're like they're buying. They are shopping through us. So it's a cool platform, man. It's really different. It's the kind of thing that like if even if I wasn't the founder, I would use it. That's what we designed it for, because I wanted to be able to connect with other people, right? Like, I love to hunt and fish and talk to other people that do that as well. So if you're into any of those things, you're definitely going to like it once you get into this community.
Yeah, well, I know, most of my listeners are going to be hound people that coon hunt, or maybe they squirrel hunt, or they do something with hounds. And
Yeah,
we constantly get attacked in other media platforms for, our dog looks too skinny even though it's in shape, and your dog is probably like my lab that's at the house that's too fat. But
right.
so I've really enjoyed being able to post pictures and videos over there and see other people's content. And the really cool thing is there's a button that's called, I think it's near me or nearby me or something like that. You can click on it and it'll show people close in to your area that has the same likes that you do. I really do like it, and it's one of those things that it's kind of like some of these other social platforms. Some of them, it just takes a little bit to get used to using, and like me, it took me a few times of playing with it and posting stuff and just putting whatever on there to really get the hang of how it works, and I've really enjoyed it. Hey guys, this is Jason over at the Coonhound Collective Podcast. Is your dog box starting to get wore? Maybe it's starting to get a little cracked like mine is. Maybe you've just been thinking about it's time to upgrade to a new box, but you've asked your buddies and you're just not real sure what direction to go in. Well, let me help you out here. Go check my friends out at CZ Welding and Fabrication, Custom Dog Boxes and Aluminum Products on Facebook. You can check out all their custom work they do there and their designs that they do. If you don't see something that you don't exactly like there, reach out to Nathan at 540-810-5439, 540-810-5439, or send him a message through the Facebook page. I bet he can fix you up. Don't wait till fall to get that new dog box. Go ahead, get that dog box now. Get you something looking good in the back of your truck that you can be proud of and that you can haul your dog around in comfort. Check my friends out at CZ Welding and Fabrication. You won't go wrong. Dog boxes built by hunters for hunters. Get yours today. CZ Welding and Fabrication.
Yeah, it is different, and that sometimes comes in the form of a complaint. I think people want, like, they expected that we took Facebook, colored it camo or hunter orange, and called it a day, but you can't out Facebook. Facebook's been around for almost 20 years now, and they've got 60,000 employees, and they make $20 billion a quarter. And, for us to go out and try to rebuild Facebook would have been foolish, because that's the surest way to kill your business, right? You got to have something unique about it. So we've tried to focus on things that you can't do with Facebook. And a lot of the communities, like you just mentioned, houndsmen. I mean, my God, we're blowing up on the houndsman front right now, because like what you said, a lot of the hound guys get attacked. People don't like that. Even if they treat and feed a bear, they don't like that, right? Like on a Facebook, or a lot of these guys hunt a mountain lion. They'll use dogs to hunt mountain lions, and that's totally misunderstood thing. People really, outside of hunting, really don't understand that, so they'll attack these guys. So, there's audiences like trappers that trappers are kind of up there with houndsmen and being really misunderstood for what they do. And so groups like that can find solace not only in finding a really active community of fellow houndsmen and trappers. You can also use that near me feature, and you can do it across the app. So we have just to explain some functionality real quick, as if you guys do pull out your app and kind of walk through it with me, you'll see on the bottom of the menu, there's a home button, trail mix, post, and shop. So real quick, I just want to talk through what that trail mix is. When you follow something at the beginning, when you sign up, those are called trails, right? It's kind of our clever name for forums. And so and when you tap on trail mix, you can actually hit that near me button up at the top. That's what you're talking about. It's a little radar button up at the top. And now all of the content you're going to see is going to be close to you, and it's also filtered by everything that you follow, because your trail mix is everything you follow. So that's pretty cool, right? Like I just pulled mine up, and it's I follow everything because I like to see everything that's going on in the app. So I've got a ton of different content from people in Kentucky right now because that's where I am. So if I go into, let's just say houndsman, because that's what was something you mentioned and a lot of your audience likes. So we've got 124,000 people that follow houndsman, and I can see who our top houndsman guys are. I can see across all of these different names, and I can go through, and then when I first hit that, it's not near me. It's all the houndsman content. So I can see a lot of dogs, Ridge Kit's here showing off one of his pups here, and then all this stuff, right? So I hit near me though, and now what's really cool about this is I've got houndsman content from, I see Tennessee, I see Kentucky, there's Chris Powell with Houndsman XP. I've got all these guys who are close to me that are using the platform, and now the near me functionality, that makes it more relevant for weather. It makes it more relevant for seasonality. So whatever the season is, if you're hunting or something, that feature is just, you can't do that anywhere. That's not something you can do on Facebook or any other platform that I'm aware of. So that's something really unique to go out, and we're really proud of that, to be able to unite people regionally like that.
Yeah, I really think it's a cool feature. One of the questions I got to ask when I reached out and said I was going to do this podcast was, and I know you done said that you're not recreating Facebook, and nor should you, but on Facebook there's pages that can be followed, and one in particular was the Unleash the Kraken. It's a Coonhound page that a lot of English guys follow, and one of those guys said his post got taken down from Facebook, and I commented, "Hey, go over to Go Wild. You won't have to worry about that." And he said, so then me and him got the private messaging, and he said, "Well, I would, but we can't. Is there a way to create a group like that, or is it just in the Houndsman or in that type of platform?"
That's a good question. So right now, there is no. We've done experiments with this. I've had groups come out and say, "Hey, I've got 200,000 people, and I want to come over to Go Wild." And we've done tests of it, man. And again, you're kind of setting yourself up to compete with Facebook against that. It's just not done well in the past. So we haven't expedited creating private groups like that as a functionality that anybody can do. Again, we did this privately, like we created the group for that person. They promoted it for a month, and we haven't seen a tremendous lift from that. So it seems like one of those things that people talk about, but when we've tested it, it didn't perform very well for one reason or another. And unfortunately, we operate fairly small. We've got a very small team. We're less than a dozen people. And so, being able to replicate a big, robust feature like Facebook groups is tough. It doesn't mean that we're never going to do it. And it's just something like I would rather focus on things like the rewards, things like the getting more gear in the store. It just makes it really tough. Like if we were to spend the next 6 months replicating the Facebook feature that in our test hasn't done that great, like I don't really think that's going to be a needle mover for us in growth. Like it seems like it would, but it just hasn't when we've tried it.
Yeah. Well, again, nor should you try to recreate Facebook. I mean, I've used it because that's what was there, but I have, and I have family out of state, and they use it, and they don't hunt, so I use it for those type of things. But for my hunting stuff, I definitely I'm posting on Go Wild about my podcast. I'm posting there. I'm also posting it
But
over on
we got a lot
Facebook.
of podcasts. Well,
Yeah,
our podcast fanatics I've got to be one of the most active places to talk about podcasts.
yeah. And I don't know. I think it's a good community. You got like-minded people sharing like-minded things or ideas, and even asking questions in
Yep,
there. I think
for sure.
that's a pretty coal thing, and nobody's raking them over the coals or telling them they're stupid or you shouldn't have shot that doe or whatever because I might put a picture of a doe on there myself.
Oh, dude, I mean, I've posted does, and I think one of my doe trophies that I put up was one of my most engaged posts I've done. And not only do they not do that, we don't allow it. We it's kind of funny because in some ways we are an uncensored platform. You can say what you want, you can post what you want, but there are some rules at play. And one of those rules is if you troll somebody for shooting something that was legal, we're going to delete you. You might get a warning, you might not. So we fully believe that one of the problems with hunting overall, and same for fishing, there's things in fishing that we don't like, is how people treat newbies. And if a newbie posts that he's happy with a doe or a spike buck or whatever it is, you need to celebrate that, right? Like that's good for hunting because we're bringing somebody else into the fold. So we really will crack down on people who are trolling like that. We have deleted people, and we do delete people for that. So it's not an unpoliced platform.
Yeah, well, I can say so far I've enjoyed it. I've been inviting people using my code. I've been
Awesome.
telling people about it. I've really enjoyed it. If you're listening to this, like I said, if you haven't done it already, just take a minute, pause it, download this from the App Store. Um, I can post. I'll post my link on some different social media platforms. You can click on it and go through it that way. But either way, just download it. We can interact together there. I think it's a great platform and a great future for hunters and fishermen alike, for sure.
Yeah, and likewise, if whenever anybody joins, we do things quite a bit differently when you come into the platform. You're going to get messages from my co-founder Chris, from Erica, who works for us here, and me. So I always tell people, let me know that you heard about us from this podcast. I like to say hi and just kind of know where people came from. Those messages are automated. I don't claim that they're not, but what's real is when I respond back, and I do respond back. Sometimes it takes a couple days because I get hundreds of these a day. And I'll usually sit down at night and, sit down and before bed, spend an hour kind of going back and forth with people, talking to people. And I love that. It's awesome. I love getting to talk to people. And it's usually one of those things of, talk about differentiators from Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg's never private messaged anybody, right? Like people are always really happy to get the dialogue with the people that actually build the product, which is cool.
Well, I would definitely say that's how me and you started talking was through that. You automated
That's right.
message come through. I replied back. We talked about doing this with the podcast, and I I thought it was pretty cool that I'm sure you get, like you said, hundreds of these a day, and for you to take the time to actually reply in yourself, I thought that was pretty cool and really shined a light on Go Wild for me. I had originally heard you on Ben Sheets' podcast and then with Chris Powell, and I thought, yep, this is something I need to check out.
Yeah, man, for sure. Ben's a great guy. Ben came up to see us at the Great American Outdoor Show. We exhibited up there for the first time this year. So if anybody's up in Pennsylvania, we're coming back for 2023, despite the fact that I got the flu. Braden got the flu. That show was good to us. We had a great time. We'll be back up there next year. Love connecting with people. And, I think most people find out that we're all just real guys and gals too. We like to hunt, we like to fish. We've got some fanatics across the board on that, and camping and everything. We don't require anybody to do one of those things specifically to work here. But as you can imagine, the opportunity to do something you love in marketing, maybe, and you get to do something in an industry that you would like to work in, like outdoor industry. It draws a lot of people that have similar interests to the people on the platform.
Yeah, well, that's for sure, and that was that's kind of my deal behind this podcast is to bring people together that I do things like they do, coon hunting at night, some type of hound stuff, and that's the reason why I wanted to have you on is because I think you have a good product there. I think just we got to get the word out to people and share it, and get people over there and interacting so it can grow. And I'm sure since it being on Houndsman XP, I'm sure y'all have seen an explosion in that area. I would assume anyway. And
Yeah, Chris's podcast, it blew up. People, that's probably honestly, out of all the podcasts I've done over the years, it's probably the strongest reaction that we've ever seen.
yeah, well, I know Chris and them have a lot of people listen there. They're kind of the old school guys of the Hounds type podcast out there. So I know a lot of people listening, and like I said, I'd heard you on Ben Sheets, and I thought I don't know what this is, and then all of a sudden I hear you on the Houndsman XP, and I thought, okay, I need to check this out, see what this is, and like I said, after I got over there messing with it, it took a time or two, of trying to get your feelers around it and understand it, but after you get to messing with it, I really enjoy interacting with the people there, and me and Ben Sheets there's a private message thing. If you're listening and you didn't know that, you can private message just like you can on any other social media. Me and Ben Sheets private message back and forth quite a bit over there.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of I kind of mentioned that. That we don't do some of the things on Facebook. I think people are going to be really interested in the things that we do that they don't. That reward system is awesome. We have a trophy system that, it asks you for all your data that from like, what species of animal was it? How did you capture it? And, part of the feedback or part of the cool thing is we get feedback from people and we execute it. When after Chris's podcast, or maybe it's Ben's, I don't remember, we got a bunch of houndsman guys and they said, hey, the only option on a bear is that I killed it. And a lot of times the bears are treat and freed, and I'd like to have that as an option. So guess what? We added treat and freed as an option, and it's probably one of the most popular trophies being logged right now. So we're really receptive to the feedback of the community, and I think that also makes us pretty unique in that you can actually request a trophy and it gets done within a couple weeks usually. We're really responsive and trying to build what the community wants, which again, that's part of why we haven't done groups. It's like a few people have told us they want that, but then when we've tried it, it hasn't worked. So we've focused on the things like the rewards that are hugely popular. We are constantly getting asked to add more gear, which we're going to be at 4 times the amount of gear that we're at right now later this year. So we're really doubling down on trying to do those efforts. And, those are what make it special as a platform. But the community itself is the most special thing, getting to interact with people who are just like you.
Yeah, for sure. And I was going to say that on the gear, is there a way they just send a direct message if they have a suggestion on something? I know you can't get everything, but if they had a suggestion for like in the hounds world, I know there's like some Garmin stuff on there, but like some of the Dan's Briarware, some of the Southside Briarware, stuff like that. Is there a way that they can send that in to you?
Yeah, if they actually, the best person on Go Wild to message that to is Jake Knight, and you'll see him when you search for him. I think there's a couple Jacobs on there, but he's, I think he's got his bio has been with Go Wild, or they can send it to me, Brad Lutrell. Again, they're going to get a message from me. But the best thing to do is just ask us for the brand, and then we'll look into it. I will say it's one thing to add a trophy, but the brands we have to get their buy-in to, and there's a lot of cooperation that has to happen to make it happen. It's usually not a quick switch, but what it does is if I get 5 guys who ask for, Dave's Duck Calls in a week, then I'm going to call Dave at Dave's Duck Calls and try to figure out how to sell his product, right? If we get one every quarter, it's not enough traction. A lot of times they'll be like, well, we'd like to, but we've got 40 people asking for this product over here. We're going to go with that instead. So definitely volume helps in keeping our attention on this kind of stuff.
Yeah. So you heard it there. If you have a product out there, send it in to them, let them know what it is, but tell your buddies, get on there and interact and send it in so we can build that shopping area up over there for the houndsmen with the stuff that that we need also. Because honestly, it's a great platform. I really do enjoy it. I have enjoyed it since I've been on it, and I really like seeing those points climb. It's like a game to me almost to see them points climb up there.
Yeah, it's fun, man.
Hey guys, this is Jason over at the Coonhound Collective Podcast. I'm here today to tell you about one of our sponsors, Conky's Outdoors. Whether you need a few dog collars or the whole setup, they can fix you up. They have a wide range of products from hound hunting to fishing. My friends over at Conky's Outdoors can help you out. You can order online at conkysoutdoors.com. Call them at 904-692-1568, 904-692-1568, or if you're in the Hastings, Florida area, go by and see them. Again, that's at conkysoutdoors.com because we support people who support our way of life. All right. Well, we've been at it right at 30 minutes. Before I let you go, do you have any type of hunting? I know you don't coon hunt, but do you have any type of hunting story that you could share with us, funny or serious? I usually end a podcast with that.
Dude, I've got tons of hunting stories, and most of them are like the sorrowful, embarrassing kind, which I think are kind of the most fun. It's when everybody tells all the big buck stories, so I'm going to tell you one that's horribly embarrassing. Um, this, this is my deer season last year. Okay, I normally like to get out, hang cameras, scout, and do all that stuff. And one of the funniest things about running a tech company in the outdoor space now is that I haven't been able to do that as much anymore. The days, and plus I've had more kids since before I started this. I've got a whole basketball team over at my house now, so we've got 3 kids, and it's just a lot, right? So I didn't get out to scout as much last year as I wanted to. But in one of my first times out with my bow, I saw what I thought was a really big 10-point. And I was like, yeah, that's a great deer. I'll go for that deer. So, I spent the whole season before rifle opener watching deer that were not that big 10-point. And I'm passing on 8 points, and I'm passing on little prong 4 points, and a lot of does coming through. And part of me really just enjoys hunting, and I never want it to be over. And I've done that in the past where I've passed on deer and you end up regretting it, right? when the season comes around to the end. And this kind of shaped up to be one of those years. So I all season long, I was seeing this little spike come through, and his antlers were so small that imagine tips smaller than your pinky, but then also laying flat against his head. It's the most bizarre looking thing. I've never seen a deer with such tiny antlers at that point. Usually a spike buck, you're talking, at least 3 or 4 inches. And these were just very tiny, toothpick-like antlers. And I passed on that deer 6 times last year. And I passed on that 8-point a couple times, and I had multiple times of seeing the big deer from a distance that was too far to shoot with a bow. Well, all season's going, and I've got great deer activity, and I'd been moving around a lot and trying to stay mobile with different stands and hunting from the ground and whatnot. And rifle season rolls in, and I go out and hunted from a spot that I'd never rifle hunted. It's a really great bow stand spot, but I'd been seeing good activity. So I go down in this little creek bed, a lot of the guys out west would call it a draw or drainage. And I'm kind of hunting in this spot, and I hunt there all day and seeing deer. Didn't see anything worth shooting or that I wanted to shoot. And I heard so many shots though. And so I didn't want to blow out the deer on my walkout because where I was coming from, I wanted to have just a little bit of light left that I didn't have to use my flashlight and I could see. So shooting light was pretty much winding down, and I left with like 10 extra minutes to go. And so I get out of this tree stand. I was using an old climber, and I've got a bunch of gear because it's an all-day sit. So I had, my bag was kind of heavy, and I walk out, and I'm huffing and puffing, and I walk up this hill, and I wouldn't been loud, but I wasn't really particularly been super quiet either. I walk up and I look up, and there's the 10-point standing there looking at me, and it's just over this hill, and I can see his back and his neck, and then he's got that big wide rack looking at me. And I pull my rifle up just instinctively, and I'm sitting there I'm like huffing. It's hot, and I'm like, okay. I don't feel comfortable taking the 70-yard shot because it's going to have to be a neck shot on this deer. And I kind of think through it, and I decide to pass. I'm like, I'm standing upright, nothing to put this gun on. It's a 70-yard shot. I haven't shot this. I've shot this rifle stable enough, but I'm just not comfortable with the shot. I didn't think it was ethical. Plus, if I'd shot this thing, it was going to be an all night trying to find it, right? So I'm like, this is a good thing. He lived through opening day of deer season, and I heard like 100 shots in the morning, just before 8 a.m. even. It was crazy. And so I'm like, he lived. This is great. I'm coming back out here tomorrow. So I let him go. He takes off, and what's funny is if I had waited until shooting light, the end of shooting light, there's a chance he would have walked right by my stand because that's where he was headed. And so I leave, come back the next day, and I've got that deer in my mind. He's exactly what I'm looking for. And I get out, I walk a mile back out to my other stand. Changed stands for one reason or another. I can't remember. It might have been the wind or something. And I got out there really early to make sure I had time to settle and get quiet. And I see another hunter walk in, probably 200 yards away into the property that I'm looking at, because I'm hunting kind of close to the property line, probably 150 yards from the property line. And he's 200 yards when he walks in. And so I make a mental note, not that I would shoot into somebody else's property anyways, but just extra safety. Like, okay, somebody's definitely hunting over there. I can't, I won't even take, not that I would, but like, you're not shooting that direction. And so that morning I had some does and fawns moving around, or kind of like yearlings walking around. And then I saw this 8-point come out, and I'm like, oh, that's the 8-point that I saw the other day during bow season and passed on. And he came out walking funny. And tines are a funny thing, right? You see them from one angle and they look huge. Well, this deer had turned his head towards me, if I can make that make sense. He's at 110 yards when he walks out of this field, and his head, I can see the top of his head. He's got it turned to the side so I can see the top of it. And so these tines don't look particularly long. And he walks 5 yards like that. It's kind of weird. And where he's coming out, I told you I can't shoot in one particular part. I've only got about 15 yards to make a decision here. And he covers 5 with his head down. Or crooked weird. And then he stops and stands it up straight, and I realized it's the 10-point and that I had screwed up. And so I pull up, but by the time I'm ready to take the shot, this deer's over the hill, and he goes out of sight, and I hear a shot, and I'm like, I just screwed that up. I've been hunting that deer all season, and I watched him walk over the hill and get killed. So I'm sitting there, man, and if anybody's ever been through something like this where you've seen the deer you're chasing, I've had this happen a couple times, but this was the worst of it, because usually I'll see them on somebody else's property and then hear the shot, because I swear out where I hunt, there's just people, like, it's crawling with hunters on opening weekend, right? Super pressured. So I'm sitting there kicking myself, and I mean, I'm like horrifically pissed. I mean, I am so mad at myself that I didn't shoot, because the thing that made me mad wasn't that I was after this deer. I'm like, it's second day of gun season in this county where everything gets shot. Like, why were you being picky? That was what I was mad about myself. I was like, that would have been a really good deer anyways if it had been the 8-point. Why were you being picky? You're so stupid. You just kind of start beating yourself up. So it starts getting cold. It's raining. I sit there for 4 hours miserable. And I mean, it is like 38 degrees and raining is the worst, like pretty much my worst conditions I can imagine, because I'd rather it just be like 31 degrees and snow at that point. But I'm getting wet. My face is getting windburned. I'm sulking in my misery here. And then I decide, I'm like, well, I'm shooting the first thing that walks out. I'm going to shoot the first doe that walks out of here, and then I'll try to come back and find another buck. And so 4 hours passes, and a deer walks out of where that other deer had gone down. And I checked 3 times with my rifle scope, looking at it. Look through the scope. Nope, no antlers. Look through the scope, no antlers. But it was super windy, and this deer is moving quick. And it's, as I said, it's a short gap from where he came from to where he's headed, or she. And so I'm like, that's a doe. We got a confirmed doe. All right. So I tried to bleat and stop her just to give her enough distraction to kind of slow down. And it wasn't working. So finally I just go, meh! And I shouted. I mean, it was like just a straight up shout to try to get this animal to stop. And it works. and I shoot 110 yards. I could tell it was a small deer, so I was trying not to blow out the shoulder, and I put it a little far back, trying to save the meat. And just in all the madness, I was like, I feel like that might have been a little far back, but I don't know. So, anyways, deer runs off, obviously wounded. Long story short, I had a hard time finding this deer. It ran down into this really thick stuff. It went about 200 yards before I found it, and I had no blood trail at first. It took me a while to find it, but then when I found it, I got into a good blood trail, find the deer. I walk up and I'm looking at this doe, and I'm like, okay, this ended up being a good day. I got meat in the freezer. I've still got my buck tag. I'll come back and find another good. Well, there's 8 points out here. There's going to be a good deer come by, and I had just a private, respectful moment, and I wouldn't have even told anybody about. I just said, "Thank you, girl," or something like that, and just kind of sitting there by myself, being grateful for this animal I just killed. And I roll her head up to look at her, and I'll be damned if it wasn't that spike. And I shot the little toothpick spike, and words were said that we probably shouldn't say on this podcast, but I was so mad all over again because it's Kentucky, you only get one buck tag. And so I just cashed out my buck tag on this little bitty deer, and I was so mad at myself. And it was funny. I got a picture, and it's actually on my Go Wild profile, one of my more recent trophies, if not my most recent. You can see when this deer's ears are up, you can't see those antlers. And so Kentucky's rule, I think, is 1 inch. If you basically can hang a key ring on it, it counts as an antler. And so if it had been a button buck, I would have been better off. But I cashed out my tag. I learned a lesson. I've got that deer's head in my freezer, and I keep saying I'm going to clean it up and make a mount that says, like, all decisions have consequences or something like that. I'm going to put it on, like, this giant oversized board with this little bitty skull, basically reminding myself to be patient. Because the funny thing is, I've now learned when I'm trying to save my buck tag, I'll never, ever shoot a doe first at 110 yards, first of all, because it's way too far to be trying to see if it had spikes or not. But what was very redeeming about Go Wild is at first, on opening day, you're seeing everybody with these big bucks that they shot, and I'm like, man, I want to get a buck. And but what was great was I posted this deer, and I told this horrific story on our podcast, Uncensored, and I had so much good feedback from people that said, I've done that. And so they said, I actually had, I felt better about it because I felt so stupid, dude. Especially, I'm like, man, all these people expect me to be a good hunter because I'm the CEO of Go Wild, right? Like, they want to see me doing cool stuff. They don't want to be like, oh, that's the idiot that shot the spike. But actually, I ended up getting really, I felt really redeemed by the audience on Go Wild saying, like, hey, man, that's cool. We've all been there. So kind of a fun way that Go Wild actually affected my real life, of just making me feel better about a really dumb decision I made.
Well, I can say we've all been there for sure. But hey, that's the way it is sometimes. But well, we've been at it about 41, 42 minutes, so I don't want to hold you up anymore, and I got to get out here and get some grass cut. My crew's probably going to be jumping up and down. So,
man, I get it. Appreciate you having me on, and if anybody wants to join, you can go to downloadgowild.com, or we're in both the app stores. So check us out.
All right. Well, thank you, Brad. We appreciate you being on the Coonhound Collective podcast, and we're going to get out here and mow some grass today. Thank you.
All right, man. Yes, sir.
Thanks, guys, for listening to the Coonhound Collective podcast today. We really appreciate you taking your time out of your day to listen to the podcast. If you don't mind, head over to Facebook and give us a like, and head over to Instagram and give us a follow. It's both at the Coonhound Collective. Also, if you would like to reach us here at the Coonhound Collective, you can reach us at thecoonhoundcollective@gmail.com. If there's someone that you would like to hear on the podcast, or a product that you would like to hear talked about, please send it to thecoonhoundcollective@gmail.com. Thanks again. Have a great day.